Well, good evening, folks. It's the real Captain Kirk here. It's the 17th of October, Sunday evening. We're live from 1 Bethlehem Plaza here in downtown Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Real quick recap here of last week on a Retail Federation calendar. So this week ending Saturday the 16th. And the big map here is temperature trends versus a year ago. One thing we'll see here is a dichotomy across the U.S. here. Again, cold west, hot east. But overall, the U.S. was 2.7 Fahrenheit warmer than last year, warmest in 4 years, second hottest in 36 years. So even though we had the cold weather in the west, U.S. overall population centers were, again, second hottest in 36. A little bit wetter, 32% wetter than a year ago, eighth wettest in 36 years. Up in Canada, again, hot, similar trends, warmest in 10 years. UK, warmest in 4. Europe, a little bit cooler, coolest in 6 for the UK overall, more cool toward the eastern part of Europe. Russia, a little bit cooler than last year. China, again, warmest in 5. Australia, coldest in 5, again, as they start their spring season. And down in Brazil, again, coolest in 5 years. World overall, warmest in 3, driest in 3 years. Maps inset left are the trends versus average. Looking at this week here, 17 through 23 October, hard to believe the third week of October already, but here in the U.S., warm. Again, we're getting cooler here in the east briefly, but again, overall, warmer than average across much of the eastern two-thirds of the country. 1.8 warmer than last year for the U.S. overall, warmest in 4. Ninth warmest in 36 years, so above average national temperatures. Maps inset left there is the trends versus last year. So the East Coast is a little bit cooler than last year, a rare trend, and the West obviously continues to be both colder than average and colder than last year. 70% drier than last year. Looks like a driest in 8 years, so a little bit dry week here. Fourth driest in 36 years, so below average national precip there. Snowfall probably going to continue its heavy trends, not as heavy as last week's pretty epic northern Rocky Mountains, central Rocky Mountains heavy snow they had, but again, a little bit more this week. Wyoming, Colorado, Utah, even higher elevations of California getting in on the heavier snow act here. So a little bit early for this. Looking at next week here, last week, full week of October here, 9.2 degrees warmer than last year, making it the warmest in 5 years, third hottest in 36 years. So again, where it's kind of cool now is warming up in the central U.S. and the Rocky Mountains even, so some of that snow will melt. But again, map inset left there is temperature trends versus last year. So our retail customers would like that map there, just a little bit cooler in southeast, a little bit cooler in California. But overall, it's been a very warm fall here for much of the country compared to a year ago. 26% drier than last year, driest in 5 years. So 13th wettest in 36 years, above average. And again, notice all that rain in the west. Again, they'll take it, Northern California into the Pacific Northwest. So some good news there. Again, too bad it's not going a little bit further south into California. But again, any rain is certainly helpful after the pretty epic drought conditions. Looking at the fall trends here into the late December timeframe here. Map chart here shows actually the year-on-year temperature trends for the nation as a whole. So the red bar is much warmer than last year. Blue bar is colder than last year. And those dotted lines, red line is the national U.S. temperature and blue line is the U.S. minimum temperature. But we see here is that the September through mid-October period last year was the coldest in 8 years. This year, polar opposite, number one hottest in 36 years. So much, much warmer fall for the U.S. overall. Even with those cold trends, we looked at just the East Coast and central U.S., we'd say it's much, much warmer, back near record warm. But there's good news on the horizon for our retail customers that like colder fall weather. We think that pattern will probably begin to break down as we get into November, December. A lot of signs pointing toward a much earlier start to colder trends this year compared to last year. So again, some good news on the horizon here. Those blue bars, again, a lot of colder periods. In fact, we think December might even be colder than is projected here. So again, cold and snow. Don't get too lulled to sleep here in the east because we do think probably going to have a pretty cold and snowy December, even along the east coast here. So looking at the 2-week aggregate here, this is, again, 2 weeks as a whole. Now this map is temperature trends versus average. Again, pretty much wall-to-wall warm across North America, except for maybe the west, and a mixed bag across Europe and even warming up there in Siberia. So with that, folks, we hope you have a great week, and we'll be back here this time next week.